you look at the narrative that's being spent, what do they say? What's the narrative being spent? We just acknowledge that white people are the largest people on welfare. We just acknowledge that they're the largest group of fraud. What is the narrative that's spent everywhere in the world?
That is us.
So if we don't have access to control that narrative, we're always looked upon as the problem. So how do we get past that to build our families back? Because as long as it's out there, it's going to be hard to build our families.
Right, but the issue isn't the system. Let me just say that. The reason why there's a breakdown in the Black family is because we have not learned our lesson from what the system has perpetuated enough to decide that we're going to work together to make the Black family unit be as strong as it was in the beginning. When you don't understand the purpose of a thing, you will abuse it. Mm-hmm. So if you don't understand the purpose of having a sound mind and all of the abilities that it has to create a wonderful life for you, for your wife, for your husband, for your children, then you won't utilize it that way. You will utilize it to go into a system and allow them to show you what kind of things you should spend your money on. You will allow them to show you what kind of things you should put your children into. You will allow the system to tell you this is what makes sense if you want to have this family dynamic.
Exactly.
The minute that we decide that other people tell us how we need to operate as a family is where we make the mistake. And because we don't understand that that is perpetuated because it's on purpose, because they understand what the power of a Black family actually coming together means. But because we won't work against that dynamic and say, hey, we're going to come together anyway, because we do know our power, we are not in power. And that's our fault.
And everybody
is
scared.
It's not because the system is so strong. No. It's because we choose not to make a decision to say, you know what, we're going to work together because we have been brainwashed to believe that we can't work together.
Exactly.
That dynamic is sitting out there, and there's too many people saying, I can't work with my people. And I don't know why we can't just do right.
And think about...
That's coming from us.
Exactly. How many times you can look in the past and see when it was illegal for us to have degrees and write and read the things we were inventing, the books we were writing, the degrees we were holding, the colleges we were starting, the innovations
that, we were laying down root foundations for that eventually built up the society for us that we are living in now. We were doing these things when it was illegal for us.
Listen.
And we still prosper. And here we are today, the most innovative, the strongest, just the all around dopest people walking the planet. Everything that's around here is perpetuated from our culture, our being, from everything we've ever done and said. Every other race has developed from.
But we're not walking in that power.
That is true.
Not enough.
That is true.
I'm going to give...
That's because we don't know how to walk in our power.
Yeah, Kadia, I'm going to let you close this.
How can you ask somebody to walk in their power, but they're not even aware of the power? So let's talk about why Black people... I'm sorry, Arthur. Let's talk about why Black people don't work together. Well, back in slavery, it was even in a sense that too many Black people were standing by each other. These things are by design. So before we go and say what people won't do, maybe we should say what people cannot do. And not because they don't necessarily have the capability, it's because they have not been educated. They have not been empowered. Mm-hmm. So to say those things, they can be highly offensive to people who are really trying to move past not knowing and really learning in the ninth inning. So I just think that before we put these things out here to how many other people that this podcast will hear, we need to be mindful of what we're saying.
Well, it's all about perspective. Perspective means that before you take offense to something that's being said, you really need to listen about what you're hearing and why are you interpreting it that way? Because, see, that's a dynamic that plays out as well.
Yep.
We are quick to be offended because we're not focusing on what's being said. Sometimes what's being said is in exact agreement with what the other person is saying.
Exactly.
But you're so ready to defend something that you believe that you heard that you didn't really hear. That wasn't what was being said. I believe that there are enough of us that can educate each other on how to work together. But the point is, we have to trust each other enough to do that. And that's a process, because we have been put in a position where we don't trust each other. That's not because we don't want to, but if we don't establish that is one of the root causes of why we don't come together, then we can't fix that. But we have to own that. We have to own that that's why it's there. There's no reason for us to waste time talking about who created it or fixed it or didn't fix it. The bottom line is we know it exists. We know that there is a foundation there that says that we don't trust each other, and there's a reason for that. But before we sit and have 20,000 platforms about why we don't trust each other, the bottom line is we know that that's there. Let's just fix it.
Yeah.
Because we waste too much time coming together talking about whose fault it is that things aren't right. Okay, we already know it's not right. Let's move past that and get it right. Because we don't have forever to get it right.
There are plenty of very, very good solutions and starts to solutions.
Correct.
You know,
I agree with that.
But that one thing right there, trust,
right.
and that is a part of the narrative. That is by design. You know, a family that's not unified isn't a family that's strong.
That's correct.
That is correct.
In order to drive a wedge between the strength, you know, there has to be a separation, whether it be in finances, whether it be in education, whether it be in religion, or whether it be a simple point of view of you always leave the ice trays empty. You know, it's just that it goes so far and so deep, and each one of those things is a wedge. When you go to
what do we do? Because now I don't necessarily agree with that stance, because I do think that people need to be educated on the foundation. But we don't even have to dissect that piece. What do we do to gain trust from the majority?
Show and prove.
Control the narrative. Right now we're simple. We are we're texting now. A few words. We're giving big sound bites. And we have to start controlling the narrative, because we've realized there is power in the narrative.
That's right.
The only solution is a revolution. Yes, we're going to have to revolt against this system that we're so comfortable with. The only solution is a revolution. Revolution doesn't necessarily mean war with guns and things of that nature. You know, I don't want people to be misunderstood. But a revolution is financial in the United States.
Right.
If we want to revolt against the system, everybody shut down your Facebook, your Instagram, your YouTube accounts, and we go find the Black platform on all the way to the damn satellites by Black people, and everybody subscribe to that forum. You know, you want to revolt against the system, everybody stop buying whatever. Just choose a company and run their ass out of business.
That's right.
Period.
So I guess the question would be, all that sounds good, but you would have to, people would have to understand why that's beneficial and what are they getting out of it. Because like we said, everybody's on the soundbite. Everybody wants to feel good. People need to understand why that's important. Because if not, then they can't necessarily connect to it. Therefore, their inability to establish trust.
Everybody wants to use these platforms for their own individual upcoming. You know, I use YouTube. I'm trying to get the this, the that. I use the TikTok, and I'm trying to gain followers and this and that. You know, but how many people are truly using it for the whole of the Black community, to raise the Black community, period? Not just raise my social status, not raise my platform, not build my company, but build my people. How many people are on these platforms that are segregating us? These platforms that are perpetuating lies against our people, these platforms, you know what I mean, that are out here completely destroying the reputation of influential people in our community. How many Black people are actually using these platforms to uplift and build a solid foundation for our people so that we can create a narrative? Hardly none, because of the individualistic mindset that I got to do for me and I got to do for
mine.
We're
an individualistic society.
Thank you.
We're not a collective society.
Right, but the only way we're going to get there is to use the individual platforms that we have. The only way you're going to build is, instead of waiting for somebody else to build that for us and then jumping on board, you got to be that somebody. You got to be the person that says, I want this dynamic to look different for my children and their children and my friends and, you know, people I haven't even met yet, because I understand the power in numbers. It's a numbers game.
So how
on
about
every
this?
platform. It's always about numbers.
But how do you deal with the fact we all as human beings, we love to be apart. We love to see those hearts. We love to see those likes. These topics are not going to get you loves, are not going to get you likes. And so how do I keep pushing when no one is even liking what I say? We do this to hope that somebody watch it. We don't do this for 3 people. Even though we should have that mindset, we don't do it. So how do you, these things are great, but how do you get past that when I can say something crazy and get 1 million likes and say something right and get nobody look at it?
Well,
Right,
here's the
because
thing. You got to figure out. Sorry, Mike.
You go ahead.
But I'm passionate about this, and that's why I'm going to say it. When you don't understand the purpose of a thing, you will abuse it, including your life.
Yep.
If you don't think that you were brought here for a purpose, then you will go through your whole life trying to obtain something that has no value. God did not put me here to obtain 1,000 likes on Facebook. If they come, wonderful, great. If they don't, wonderful, great. But what he put me here to say, I'm going to say, because that's what I'm charged to do.
Yep.
And it's my responsibility to know that when he created me for something specific. And it wasn't just so I can get some money and so I can get some likes and so I can be in the limelight and all of that. If he puts me in the limelight, there's a purpose for that. And if I misuse that, then I am creating a stigma that people think that this is what it's all about. And that's immaturity. That's what that is. When you mature and you grow, you recognize that there are things that are bigger than you.
Yep.
This that we're talking about is bigger than us. It's bigger than our family. It's bigger than just one small group of the people that you know. This is a worldwide situation. The only way we're going to bring light to it is we're going to have to make a decision that even if it isn't popular, even if it isn't loved, it still needs to be brought forward. And that's something that we are powerful in doing. We are powerful in bringing to light the things that people don't want to talk about, whether they're loved or not. We got to talk about them, because if we wait for somebody else to talk about them, it's not going to happen. Because they know what happens when we talk about it. It stirs people up. It causes people to, get into an attitude where people don't want to work together, that were never meant to work together in the first damn place. So now we're in a situation where we say, okay, what are we going to do? Are we going to shrink back in fear and say, oh, I'm not going to do this now because I know that this isn't going to be beneficial because my friend over here is whatever they are. They're Caucasian, they're Asian, they're Hispanic. They're going to be offended by what I'm saying. But guess what? When they stand up for what they believe in their culture or their race, they're not worried about who's offended. We're the only race of people that worries about what everyone else thinks.
Whenever you always want to be included, I was mentioning earlier this week, stop celebrating a seat at the master's table. The first Black person to be let through the doors of such and such, and the first Black person to be, if this system has been around for 150 years, perpetuated, owned, and still ran by white men whose greatest, thought is the oppression of Black man, and you're celebrating for the fact that after 150 years of being in existence, they finally let a nigga in the door? No. I'm sorry. Yes. Look, please, let that go.
Right.
Let that go. we as a culture and a race are doing so many great things that why don't I see more standing up for that right there? I'm not happy about a seat at your table. I'm happy about the table that I built.
That's right.
For my people.
Absolutely.
We need to uplift ourselves and bottom line, stop looking for help from the very same system that perpetuates the ills against us. You cannot win in another man's house. Plain and simple. We in someone else's house. This house wasn't built for us. We don't know all the ins and outs of it. We're not going to know all the ins and outs of it because it was built that way.
On purpose.
On purpose.
That's right.
For us not to know the ins and outs of this house. So we need to get out this house and build our own house, build our own foundation. Because we've seen before when we put our foot down and we set a foundation or we start a path in a direction, everything under the sun comes right behind us.
Right.
And we get so comfortable and happy that everything else is sending out likes and hearts about what we're doing that we start to relax and fall back, heads swell up. Then next thing you know, we're standing behind everybody else that came behind what we opened up the path for. Because we're constantly wanting to be a part of something that was not meant for us. After all of the years that this place has been in existence and we still fighting for equality and freedom, what the hell are we fighting for? What are we fighting for?
Something we're not ever going to get.
If everybody is so proud about the equality and the laws and the things that was passed during all of those marches that happened back in the 60s, then where are the results from that now? It was paper thin. You could see through all of that nonsense and that buffoonery like you could see through saran wrap, and it's just as weak. Because if it was anything, it hasn't even been a whole lifetime. It's only 60 years later. And you can arguably say that things are worse for black people now than they was 60 years ago when we were still marching in the streets talking about give us our freedom and give us our rights and whatnot. And what did they do? They gave us their behind the kiss. And what did we do? We put on damn chapstick to make sure we didn't chap their ass when we kissed it. We are steadily participating in the same thing that's killing us. You can't drink poison and hope for the other person to die.
What are you saying, Miss Kadia?
I think all of this is good. It sounds good. But do you know why we, for the most part, are all in agreement? It's because we've been educated and we know these things. So do you know why that they say, even if you have a bachelor's degree, they consider you middle class, which I thought was stupid until I did my research, because of the exposure and the education. So it sounds good to us, and I'm sure that you guys are shaking your head, although I can't see you, but not everybody has that exposure and education. Right. So I totally agree with it, but now we need to be functional. We have to figure out how. How do we get this message to our communities? How do we get people to buy in? Or else we're just four people on a podcast talking about, like we said before, how do we get our people to buy in? I think is where we should talk about where to go next, which means how do we get our people to trust us?
Start in our homes.
Right.
Start in our homes.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Absolutely.
Right there. That's where it starts at, right in your own home. You begin to not only talk about the solution, but you begin to enact the solution. In order to change the motivation, you got to change your mind. In order to change your mind, you're going to have to actually take an open, honest, and clear look at what the hell are you thinking?
Right.
What are you thinking? Are you thinking about everything in every way that you can maneuver and work for a little more comfortability within this system? Or are you thinking, how can I tear this system down? How can I tear the system in me down and start to rebuild a new system for my child to listen to when I speak, a new system for me to speak from? That has to be the mind frame, and that has to take place in the home.
And we also, and I agree, but we also need to tell the truth in our home. Little fact, less than 3% of the financial industry is black males. We need to tell our kids the truth. That is not because black males do not understand money. That is not because they don't. It's because they have been shut out. And when you run up and you meet a black male, they can give you some education about finance. Be willing to listen. Be willing to take in that knowledge, and don't assume because he wasn't fighting in the house, he didn't know what he was doing. Because see, we have to build the leadership the way it is. At the beginning, she said, there is a structure to this. God created structure. It's the man. The man is the head. So once we back empower the man in his position as the head, everything else will start working together. But we have to go against
the woman is the head.
No, we're talking about how it was designed. Now, where it is and how it's designed are two different things.
Yeah, but you know, if you think about how it designed, if it was designed so perfect, if it was designed in a certain way that fit, then it would be fitting right now. Not looking at the flaws or anything, and this whole ball of wax that we're talking about, but the family design, the man, woman, however that structure was said to go. The woman sets the tone for the whole.
That's different. But if someone break into your house right now, and you're in the house and you're a male, you upstairs, you're the one that goes downstairs to take the bullet. You're not going to wake that woman and say, hey, listen, baby, you're the head of this. Me and the kids going to relax, and if we hear a couple gunshots, we'll call the police.
Well, you wake the woman up, you put a gun in her hand first, and then you grab yours and you
But you go downstairs. You don't send her. You're going to make, as a man, you want to make the decision who lives or die downstairs. You don't want to put that on your children or your wife if you're a real man.
Well, that's
no, it's not. It's the same.
Listen, that's a structure and a protective situation, but a structure in a building situation to build the black family, to counteract the destruction that is so systematically perpetuated against our families. The building of the structure of a family, the base is the matriarch, is the woman.
And I'm going to tell you one last thing, and I'm going to say this on that right there. And here's my issue with what you're saying. Children when they come out of the womb, they've already have it set. You take a little kid, he gets a cut on his arm. Who's the first person they go to? He doesn't say, Daddy, come over here. He goes to Mama. When a son wants to learn how to be a man, he sits down with Daddy. Daddy can go in there. If he know Daddy have him, he will take whatever Daddy give. Even when he can beat his daddy, he still will never challenge you because he understands that's how he learned how to become a man. And when you're saying that those things a woman can teach, he
wouldn't go to Daddy if he didn't learn from Mama to go to Daddy, because while Daddy is out working and securing the household, he's at home learning everything from Mama. If Daddy walks through the door every day and the first thing Mama do is disrespect him,
then what's gonna happen?
Then that's what he's gonna do. He's gonna learn and disrespect for that position. And you know what I mean? So that narrative, that what he learned, that respect he learned, that fear he learned, that reverence he learned.
Saying, I agree with you 100%. Right. That is going to come a lot from the house, because back in the days of time, she was in the house more, and she would teach those things and she would teach those values to the child. But the person that was out there providing to make sure there's food on the table was working the 12 and 13 hours a day, 7 days a week, was the man, and he should have been doing that. I was saying, when I was like in my 19 years old, I said a thing. He said, communities used to be so beautiful. You would come to the community, the kids would be out in the front yard playing, the mother would be in there getting dinner prepared, and then you see these trucks pull up with all these men that had soot on them, who are tired, walking in there, could barely move because they've been out there working. He said, now you go to those same community, the woman is pulling up tired, and the man is sitting at home all day with the kids. And that's not good.
Right, breakdown of the black family.
But I don't believe that that's the greater reality of our community. That's not the greater reality of our community. You can see those things. You can see a lot of things in little spaces in the community. But to take that tag and say that's the narrative, that's the overall narrative for our community, that's where I have a problem. All of those little, idiisms like that, I'm not going to accept them. I'm never going to accept them because I know where they came from. And they came from a place of malice. It was there and set intentionally to guide your mind to believe the very thing that you will sit and argue and make an argument for. That's how, that's how black women is. That's how the black man is. That's how the black family is, Not coming from somebody who don't live in a black family dynamic.
Right.
Not somebody who didn't live or come from, go back further, an Egyptian point of view. There's everybody telling the Egyptian stories aren't Egyptian.
Right.
So how you going to believe everything that they talking about? How you going to believe everything that a Chinese man say about a white family, a Puerto Rican say about a black family?
Well, it's our responsibility to teach that. Whatever knowledge you have, you should be sharing it so that other people are just as knowledgeable. If you're holding that information and you're not sharing it, whether people are going to grab onto it and trust it and believe it right away is not the point. The point is to plant the seed.
Yep.
And so our responsibility is, even if we don't have this platform, we still need to be planting the seed.
In some way, in some
seed
fashion.
is in all your conversations, not just to educate our people, but other people. If you don't have the right kind of conversations where you can kill and destroy the narrative that's out there, then it will maintain because that's what it's there to do.
And it's been
repeated. You can help to bring those walls down by making a decision that you're going to be that change that you want to see. Yep. You're going to be the person that goes in and decides to change the dynamic of how people see you and other people that look like you based on what you are sharing with other people about what you know. If you are in a position of power, utilize the power that you have to help someone else understand that they're just as powerful. Even if they don't believe it right away, you inject into them whatever you can. And then you move on to the next person. You can't wait around to see if that thing is going to germinate and grow and blossom. You don't have time to do that, but you do have time to plant the seeds. And you can plant them all over the place. But if you're only wasting your time trying to figure out if you can operate in the dynamic you're in and figure out how can you just utilize that one dynamic, there's dynamics all over the place. When you educate your children, then you help your children to go out and educate other children because they speak on their level. You allow them to do that. Don't try to interject yourself into something you don't belong in. I am not 21 anymore. I operate in a different dynamic and a different mindset. So I teach my children what I know and the benefit of the knowledge that I have. I share that knowledge with them, and then I let them go talk to other 21-year-olds and 25-year-olds and 30-year-olds.
And that's that thing, it starts in the home. Once you build it in the home, once you have those conversations in the home, and that's the greater, narrative, not what they're hearing on TV, not what they're hearing on the radio, not what they're seeing and hearing on TikTok and YouTube. You should be the greatest
influence.
Exactly. And you can be a better influence, you know what I mean, by opening your mouth and speaking about relevant things more so than we open our mouth and talk about the irrelevant things. All the complaints that we can bring up about the weather and work and society and sickness and death and finances and things of that nature, well, you could talk about 50 billion ills all day, but talking about 50 billion ills don't build that solution. Now, when you start discussing solutions amongst all of those conversations, eventually you're going to extrapolate exactly what you need You know, you even when you're talking to yourself,
Right.
you know, you running your problems and your situations over in your head and over in your mind, and you're talking to yourself. Well, you eventually talk yourself and talk through that problem and work that problem out. You know, iron the same, techniques out at home. You know, you talk about you have solution oriented conversations, to start to build that type of narrative, to start to build that type of atmosphere. And there are plenty of ways to engage and make it engaging for the younger folks, that there are conversations that they want to participate in. We as a society have to start building our own family structures again by re-educating in the home against all of society's little things that they want to stick on us, all of their little yellow Post-it notes, highest in diabetes,
right.
highest
tags
in divorce rate, the tags and labels. Just a billion of them.
Well, here's the charge, because we're wrapping up. The charge is that we want to make sure that we are sharing this information with those that we're closest to and the people that we connect to. But Khadijah, give us your final words so we can close it out.
Kadia.
Oh, sorry.
So what I want to say is, that's okay. While we're sharing the word, we need to make sure we know how to speak to people. So, people always talk about, whenever Black people, whenever you're trying to bring people into the church. So you can be the reason that someone comes over and you educate them, or you could be the reason that people say, you know what, nah, I don't want nothing to do with that.
Absolutely.
and we need to make sure that we educate and we empower and we love, and it's okay to be passionate, but we want to make sure we are speaking to people and not at people. We need to be able to meet them where they are. That's what we say in counseling. You meet them where they are. And so I just want to, in therapy, anybody comes to my chair, I'm going to give you some homework. So the homework I'm going to give to whoever can hear it is to go home and talk to your family. Get everybody at the table and talk to your family about solutions. Pick anything. Pick anything. Start on one thing. And y'all sit there together. From your youngest child to whoever has that table. Y'all sit down and come up with some solutions.
And it doesn't have to be, anything in your immediate, direct family situation. Just pick a situation.
Yep. And be solution focused.
And I would also like to say, if you don't mind, can you put them in our comments so we can see them and share them with everyone? So if you do have those conversations and please, if you have questions about this or you have some solutions, please put them in the comments so we can share them.
Yes, indeed.
All right. We've had a lot to say today, and I know that we could go on and on because this topic demands quite a bit of time in order for us to really start the process the way we know we want it to go. But I think we're on the right page. I think we're going in a positive direction, and I'm excited about the things that I think that we're going to continue to do utilizing this platform. So thank you all for joining us today. And
thank you,
Kadia, thank you so much for being with us today. Hopefully you'll be with us again.
Yes.
We look forward to it.
Wonderful people. All of you guys are wonderful and passionate. And I think together we're going to continue to change the world. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Indeed. Thank you.
All right. Hitting the angles and we're out.
One love.